And then I record my audio separate in 3, 2, 1. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me, I have Kathryn Fantauzzi, and she is on a mission to change lives. She is a CEO, inventor, speaker, and a thought leader at the convergence of health, technology, and data. Kathryn has led world-class teams and multi-million-dollar projects to deliver breakthrough tech commercialization for the Energy Research and Development Authority in New York City. She is now CEO, co-founder, and co-inventor of Apollo Neuroscience, a new technology that improves sleep, focus, and mood through your body's natural response to soothing touch. In just a few years, Kathryn transformed Apollo Neuro from an idea in a university lab into a powerful tool that has already helped tens of thousands of people. And today we're going to have a chat about our nervous system and tools available to us to help us achieve more resiliency and better sleep. And with that, welcome, Kathryn. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You've got quite the experience. And then when I met you, I'm like, wow, this lady looks like she's done a lot in very few years because you look very young. Maybe that's because of the resiliency, and I'm not sure, but it's amazing what you've done and what you've accomplished. So why don't you talk to us about your history, how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I grew up in New York, and I come from a family of mostly physicians, healthcare providers, and like long history of healthcare providers. Like my grandpa was the town doctor, right? And so I've been around health my whole life. And how I came to Apollo is I've always been really fascinated about how to make things move faster. I am one of Dave, my co-founder, my husband likes to say I'm one of the most patient, impatient people. So I know things take time, but I like to make things move as fast as I can. And in healthcare, things generally in the US, take about 17 years to go from what we call bench to bedside. So from discovery in a lab to actually being used by people is like 17 years, which is that's basically like creating a human and sending them to college. Like that's a really long
Yeah.
time. So my background is in how to accelerate the development of technology. And so I started in New York, like you mentioned, in the clean energy sector, which was like identifying technologies that were out of R&D, out of research and development, but hadn't made it to the market yet, and finding them and then helping basically advance their commercialization. And so the way I ended up at Apollo is my co-founder and my husband, Dr. David Rabin, is a psychiatrist and a neuroscientist. And he was working at the University of Pittsburgh on a technology, which became Apollo, to actually be able to intervene in the stress response. So to be able to understand what's going on from all this data that we have about people, and then actually be able to intervene to help support people's recovery from stress and to help them sleep. And I joined up this research started in about 2014. About 2016, the university was really interested in the work and started approaching the lab about accelerating the commercialization. And Dave came home to me. We were engaged at the time. And he came home to me and he's like, hey, what do you think of this? And I was like, well, if you're, let me come to the meeting and see what it's about, and I'll let you know what I think. And so I sat in on one of these meetings and I said to Dave, I said, if your team wants my help, this is right in my sweet spot. Like I know all about how early stage stuff works. So if you want my help, I'm happy to help you. Just go ask if they want my assistance. And so the team's like, yeah, of course, let's do it. And so I helped raise them their first $500,000 of incubator funds to do their clinical research. And then when the clinical research proved out what we had shown in the lab was that this technology, which is a form of touch therapy, it's vibration, but it's vibrations that are waves of vibration that mimic the state that your body gets into naturally when you deep breathe. And the idea was if we applied to this to the body, would we see that the body calmed down in the way that we see from meditation? And what we found is that it did. People's heart rate came down, their heart rate variability, their resiliency improved, they felt calmer, and their biometrics of stress, like their resting heart rate, were evening out, which is not something you see under strain. You don't see your resting heart rate come down. You don't see your heart rate variability improve. You don't see that people say they're calmer when they're dealing with something stressful. And so we found in these studies, the first of which was this double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled crossover trial, was that in fact we were changing the body's response to stress by essentially giving it the benefit of deep breathing or of getting a hug from a loved one while they were doing something stressful. And so when I saw this, I was like, guys, this is, you don't normally see this. You don't normally see those kinds of results. And I was like, okay, so it's time. We need to develop prototypes. We need to test them in the real world. We need to start doing real world trials. We need to see if this really works. And they're like, well, I don't know about that. And I was like, well, I do. And so that's how I ended up starting Apollo Neuroscience, was because we really made a wild discovery in terms of how we could interact with the body's natural response to soothing touch. And I like to make things go faster. So I wasn't going to let it sit on a shelf in the university. I wanted to make sure that this technology reached people. And fast forward, we launched the product in January of 2020, which is a wild time to
Yeah.
launch a new technology, but also a pivotal and super important time to launch a technology that helps relieve stress and helps people be more resilient to stress, because that was one heck of a stress test for all of us. And fast forward now, we're well over 100,000 people are using Apollo, and we're scaling and reaching a lot of folks and helping them primarily with sleep and with focus and recovery throughout the day. And we have everybody using Apollo. We've got kids using Apollo, we got fighter pilots using Apollo, we've got adults using Apollo at work, we've got people using it in the middle of the night to help them sleep. And the real wild thing is, you fast forward, and we just completed a trial, about 1,300 people, and we found is that people who used Apollo consistently were getting benefits equivalent to what we'd see from a meditation routine. And
Mm.
so sometimes technology that's really simple is and intuitive, right? Like soothing touch helps you feel good. It's not a complicated thing to understand, right? If you are having a bad day and your dog comes up to you, and with its a big goofy face, and you give it a pet, and it's looking up at you lovingly, like, you're gonna feel better, right? Apollo works in much the same way, right? It's sending these waves to your body that mimic the state that you get into when you're deep breathing, when your body is calm, and that bottom up signal tells your body to calm down, and therefore it does.
Hmm.
And it's been a really amazing time and an amazing ride so far at Apollo.
That's amazing. The whole process of
Mhm.
taking it from the study to saying, let's just put this into action right away. Let's not sit on this forever. I love that. And there's a lot of people will ask me all the time, actually, is why not just meditate? And I'm like, well, I'm a big fan of what I call shortcuts to get there,
Yeah.
because most of us don't live like monks. And most of us have a really, really hard time getting into that state. And so we need the help. We also we don't live on our off the land. We have, ring lights in our face all the time. I say this all the time. We don't live like we used to back in the day when my parents were farmers, like in Eastern European country, that they didn't even have lights. They didn't even have electricity. They didn't even have a toilet. They had outhouses. I know. So, we can't possibly say, "Oh, well, why would we need this? Just meditate." Like, and I'm one of these people that has a hard time meditating. And it's interesting. I just want to talk about this stat that I found. In 2022, approximately 4 adults worldwide said they experienced a lot of worry, 41% of them that were polled, or stress, 40%. And nearly 1 in 3 experienced a lot of physical pain. So physical pain causes stress. That was 32%. More than 1 in 4 experienced sadness,
Mhm.
27%. And this is all according to the Gallup Worldwide Poll.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is? I mean, I mentioned a few things, and obviously you launched right before the pandemic. And this poll was from 2022. I think there was a lot of, downstream effect after the pandemic.
The APA, the American Psychiatric Association, has a statistic. So in the US, that 77% of Americans say that they're so stressed out that they get physically ill from it.
Mm.
More than 3/4 of the US is so stressed out that they notice physical symptoms of stress. That's like really wild. So why do I think it is? I mean, I think you kind of pointed it out. There's a lot of things that have happened, but really, the human body is an amazing adaptive tool. Like we have adapted really rapidly, and we're one of the most advanced, you know what I mean, mammals in the world. We run the world, really. But when you think about the amount of change that's occurred over the last 150 years, and even in the last 20, like it is wild how much has changed. They say that the amount of information that someone got in the 1950s, so US with TVs and stuff, like in the 1950s, the amount of information an average American got in 1 week is the amount of information that an average American gets in the first 15 minutes of being awake. And so what you think
Yes.
what's going on to your nervous system is you're constantly going ding-a-ling, ding, 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 ding. We used to be using paper. We were having meetings in person with a few people. Things moved more slowly.
Yes.
They moved more slowly. And there's a lot of amazing stuff that happens from being able to have like a massive computer in your pocket at all times. But there's a lot that's, that we haven't been able to adapt to, right? And we see this even with kids now, right? With kids and the amount of ADD and attention problems and mood and it, in many cases, I am of the last, you're pointing out my age, I'm one of the last generation that remembers the time before the internet, right? That had like a landline, like, well, you know what I mean?
Right
And
here.
right, but at that point, I got to train my attention. I got to train how I focus my attention and my energy back when there was a Dewey Decimal System,
Yeah.
like back before everything was instantaneous. And so can you imagine what's happening to all of our brains when we're constantly on, where there's no turning off, work is always there, there's something always grabbing your attention. It's an overload to the brain, it's an overload to the nervous system. And what you see is a lot of things going on. You see disruption in circadian rhythm and disruption in sleep, right? People have, it's like 1 in 3 Americans have insomnia. Like that's nuts. And women are 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with insomnia or an anxiety condition at some point in their lives in the US.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so it is, I think, the speed at which we move, it's the constant connection to technology, which we can't avoid, it's part of life. And there's this sleep dysregulation, lower mood, and it's, in some ways we've been separated from our natural environment, and we've been also in some ways super connected to one another through all the new ways that we connect. Like you and I are talking right now,
Yeah.
and I don't know that I would have met you before the internet. If the internet didn't exist, we might not cross paths, right? There's amazing things that connect this way, but we also connect less with people that are actually around us because we're connecting with all these other people, right? We're not necessarily as in tune and connected to our communities. And so, you asked why not just meditate? And the origin of Apollo was originally when we were working with patients with PTSD. People with PTSD have heightened, basically, they've experienced something traumatic, and therefore they have a harder time not, how do I put this? To engage with the thing that made them anxious in the first place is harder. And so learning to meditate when you're already in a high sympathetic state, a high state of fight or flight, is harder, which is why a lot of people aspire to meditate, but they don't when you really ask them if they meditate every single day. They don't necessarily do it every single day. And that's how you get the benefits from these things. And so when you're already stressed out, you're already not sleeping well, and you're already kind of in pain, to think that you can just mind over matter it, right? That it's up to you, right? It's up to you to just meditate your way out of this. Anything we can do to support the recovery of the nervous system, to facilitate behavior change being easier, to facilitate getting your sleep so you feel well rested in the morning, facilitate being able to concentrate so that you're able to calm down in your body and get the work done that you want to get done and focus your attention. Anything that can support that regulation of the nervous system helps people feel less fatigued, more focused, have a better mood, and get better sleep. And so that's
Yeah.
what it's all about. It's just finding ways. I mean, it's about time that we use technology to support our recovery instead of stressing us out.
Yeah. I think you you hit the nail on the head right there when you talked about information overload. So back, back in the day, and I'm gonna date myself, that's okay, I'm a 1970 baby, and I remember having to do a project, and you go through we had the Encyclopedia Britannicas, all those
Yep.
books, we had all those, and I would have to go through and you had to do so much work just for one little piece of information. Meanwhile, now you just, you know, type something in, get everything you want in a split second. And so you're constantly tapping into that more and more and more information. And just like what you said, if our brain is on overload constantly, are we built to be able to handle that? Are we built? And if we don't have the ability to slow ourselves down, then, you know, what's going to happen? So I'm a big believer in taking whatever it is that you need to take. I use tools to meditate. I find it very hard in the middle of my day. So after I'm done this call, oh yeah, I'm going to just turn off in a split second and turn on the meditation capabilities in my brain. Well, that's not feasible in the middle of the day, but I've got so much in this little brain of mine, Catherine, and it's only 1:30 in the afternoon. So
Mhm.
so having technology and people think, "Oh, well, you're using technology to kind of, I guess, survive from technology and information overload." But right? Like it seems counterintuitive a little bit. What do you think of that?
Well, okay. I think it depends on what you think of when you think of technology. Do you think of music as technology?
I think of music as very powerful in healing and frequencies, but yes, it's coming through technology.
Technology, right? So
Yes,
you're
it
like
is.
going to your Spotify or whatever your streaming services, Apple Music,
Yep.
you're picking whatever your tool is to get to the music, but
Right.
then you're listening to the music. And if you're listening to the music, music has profound effects on us. It can literally make or break a party. You walk into a place with bad music and you're like, I don't want to eat at this restaurant. This is killing my
Totally.
body. This is terrible. Or you walk into, I have this where I'll walk into a store and I'm like, God, no, 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 I'm out. I can't with this. Because it creates an environment and your body responds to it, right? But music is super powerful and has an effect on our nervous system. It has an effect on our mood, our energy level. We can use it to help facilitate sleep. We can use it to help us feel energized and get our work done. We can use it to party. We can use it to meditate because it's all about using these frequencies of sound and this cadence of sound and these rhythms to either facilitate our mood or to match it, right? And we do that with music. Everyone knows about this. It's just kind of an inherent part of being human.
Yeah.
So the way I think about Apollo, and we haven't talked that much about it, so just to give an idea, and anybody who's watching this thing, this is Apollo. It's a little device,
And I have mine
and
with the band.
where you can wear it on your wrist, you can wear it on your ankle. I wear mine on a clip attached to my clothes. This is it. It's really small. And basically what you do is you connect it to this app, and the app, and I'll take my phone, I have an airplane mode on, so I'll take it off for a second. But you connect it to this app, and the app has these various settings, and these settings are essentially what we call vibes. And you click on a vibe. Right now I'm on Good Morning Vibe, which is one of our vibes. And essentially what it does is it sends these waveforms to your body that are like a gentle coming and going. It's like a gentle wave coming and going. And the ones that are more morning and energetic, like the social one or the energy one, to where you work is a little bit faster. And the ones that you use for sleep or relaxation are slower. And what they're really doing is tapping into your body's natural rhythm in that state, right? And so what they're designed to do is mimic the state that your body gets into when you breathe into that state. So you know that if I'm talking to this audience, I'm talking to you, I feel like you guys know about this, but there's different kinds of breathing techniques to get you into different states. you can slowly, rhythmically breathe your way to sleep, right? Or into a deep meditative place while you're getting a massage or doing these things. You can really slow yourself down with slow breaths. And that's where they're like, hey, take a breather. Sounds kind of obnoxious when we say that, but that's what it means, right? Take a breather means take a moment, take a breath, calm your body down. You'll get out of this state. But you can also breathe your way into more excited states, right? If you're like quickly breathing or you do box breathing, Marines do box breathing to
Oh,
put
yeah.
themselves into a high heart rate variability focused state, right? There's different ways to get into that state. But so when I think about like using technology, Apollo is a very organic feeling technology. Like you put it on your body, and I'll do this when I first meet people and they're like, "What do you do?" And I, believe it or not, don't like talking about myself that much. So usually I'll be like, "Oh, I work on this company called Apollo Neuro." And they'll say, "Oh, well, what is it?" And I'll just pull it off my body and I'm like, "Here, just try it." They're like, "Well, what is it that does? What does it do? What is it measuring?" And I'm like, "Just hold it to your chest. It just vibrates. Just feel it." And then I'll talk to them about something else. I'll talk to them about their kids. I'll talk to them about what they did that day. And about 30 seconds, a minute later, they'll go, "Is this thing supposed to help me calm down? It makes me feel calmer." And I was like, "Yeah, it helps you feel calmer. That's what it does." And so, Apollo is about using this means, right? It's a device that you can take with you everywhere you go. And that was the purpose, right? You can't always be meditating when your kids are screaming in the back of the car. You can't be meditating when you're in the middle of a board meeting. It's hard to meditate in the middle of the day while you're doing other things. And so Apollo is a tool that supports the recovery of your nervous system while you're on a podcast, while you're doing your work, while you're going to pick up your kids, while you're making your schedule, while you're making dinner, while you're doing all the other things. You're getting that support for your recovery. And then what we found is that people who use this thing during the day to calm down use it at night, fall asleep faster. They get more deep sleep and more REM sleep, and their heart rate variability goes up, which is a key metric, right? If you don't know what heart rate variability is, I'm sure you do and your
Yeah.
audience does, but heart rate variability is the amount and the frequency with which your heart rate changes with the environment. It's a key indicator of how resilient or recovered your body is. So if you get poor sleep or getting sick, have chronic pain, are undergoing a lot of stress, drink right before you go to sleep, any of those
Oh,
things will
yeah.
knock your resilience down, they'll knock your heart rate variability down. And what it means is, and people think low resting heart rate. Yes, high heart rate variability. You want to be adaptable. You want to be that if a bear showed up right now in the window, I would get the heck out of here. My heart rate would go up, all the blood would go to my extremities, and I'd run. But then once I noticed that the bear was gone, I would calm back down. If you have low heart rate variability, you might not react as well to that because you're not as resilient. Also, if you have low heart rate variability during COVID, during the pandemic, people noticed that low heart rate variability was a sign that you might be getting sick. And so what Apollo is intended to do, and what we've shown, is that Apollo increases heart rate variability. And you can see that if you track any of your metrics on like an Oura Ring or a Whoop or your Apple Watch, you'll see your HRV go up. And you'll see that your sleep will change over time. And so Apollo is really about harnessing technology to support something really natural that we sometimes lose touch with because we're so busy and so focused on all the other things that we've got to do that we don't necessarily have that time to sit, with our breath
Yeah.
and walk through the forest every day, right? We got things to do. We got a ring light in our face.
True.
We got
I agree. I agree. I mean, not everybody has that ability, but like, I'm thinking for people who are in high stress roles. So let's say you are a police officer that is in a high crime area. If you're wearing Apollo Neuro, it will help with your resiliency to the stress that you're enduring all day on the job.
that
And it will
state more emotionally regulated.
because you're in a heightened state all the time.
Yeah.
Um, so I think this is just so powerful for individuals who are in roles like that, where they are just go, 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 and they can't go and stop and do a brain tap session or a new calm session, right? Like I use all of those tools, but
Yeah. And
I mean,
and
some
when
people can't do that, obviously. So the Apollo Neuro will actually, the studies have shown that that gentle vibration will actually, it's almost, this is the way I'm seeing it, Kathryn. It's almost like you're going through your day, you're doing all this stuff, you're like completely hyper, and the whole time that it's on whichever vibration state that you set it at, it's kind of saying, It's okay, Sandy. It's okay. It's all good. Right? Like it's like giving you that
It's
gentle
grounding.
nudge.
It's grounding,
Yeah.
right? It is grounding. It is, a somatic anchor. So what happens is if you're in a heightened state, so you're hypervigilant. So you're talking about a cop who's supposed to be watching constantly. He needs to be
Yeah.
hypervigilant. You know, um, a physician in the ER, a nurse,
Yes.
any of these things where you need to be paying attention, things change rapidly, and you need to be really focused. I think a lot of people associate relaxation with sedation, and they
Mm.
are not the same thing. Being asleep, being groggy, being foggy is not necessarily calm. That's sedated. And that's what
Yes.
happens when you drink alcohol, for instance. I'm not against drinking alcohol, but it is a sedative, right?
Yes.
These kinds of things sedate you. So they basically take your state of mind, which is high sympathetic activity, focus, engaged, and then they sedate you so you can transition from hyper aware to not aware.
Yeah.
That is different than what meditation is. Meditation is training your attention and staying grounded in your body, not all up in your head, but in your body. And so having Apollo on for, let's say, a cop or a physician or a nurse doesn't dull their senses. It
Yes.
actually heightens their senses. It makes them more grounded in their body, and therefore they're more in control. And so the way to think about this is your nervous system, right? Your nervous system has two branches. It has fight or flight, and it has rest and digest. And for your body to operate in optimum, like an optimum state, you need equilibrium, you need the balance. You need to be recovered enough that your fight or flight state can work as it needs to. Back to the bear, right? As it needs to. The challenge is most of us are overstimulated, like you pointed out. And so basically it's like ding, 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 here's a text message, here's a Slack
Yeah.
message,
Yeah.
here's your kid's schedule. This is the work you were supposed to do. Ah, and everyone's starting to go, and then you're all in your head and you're hyper reactive and you don't have as much control over your responses because your emotion regulation is disrupted by overstimulation. And so Apollo serves as an anchor to support recovery of your nervous system so that you can go, okay, I'm going to do this and that and then the other, and I've got this. I'm cool, calm, collected. I can get everything I need to get done because I'm relaxed and in my body, not all up in my head.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this because I don't know if you know a lot about this, but I also, you know, I don't know, you still see people talk about this is tapping, where you tap. Like I'm
Mhm.
kind of almost thinking of Apollo in a similar way,
Kind
similar
of.
yet different, but you just don't look weird sitting in a meeting like tapping all these
Or like
clicks
this while you're talking to somebody,
while
right?
you're talking to somebody, right?
Right.
But, tapping is supposed to help with that kind of regulation and calming and that sort of thing. I've never really resonated with tapping myself. I know a lot of people who believe in it. It's just not for me. Because it's just for that whole reason that I feel like weird just sitting there tapping my forehead while I'm talking to somebody if they're stressing me out.
Yeah, I mean, that would be one heck of a tell. But yeah,
Could you imagine?
no, I mean that's the point. When I talk about Apollo is there as something that's in the background that makes you better, that doesn't require you. It's also you don't have to remember to do it.
Yeah.
Like, like realistically, are most people going to tap in the middle of like if I were, stressed out by having a conversation? I'm not, but if I were stressed out by this conversation, would I do that? No, but like maybe I
No,
would think about doing it in the car later when I was driving someplace right before I left, maybe. But the thing is,
maybe.
when you're stressed, you literally forget to do those things. Like that's what happens. Like you get so wrapped up with, oh crap, now I'm late and I got to go do this thing and I got to do that thing. And you forget to do all the things, right? You forget it's like a luxury to do all those things because you have so much on your plate already. And so tapping, listening to music, breath work, different forms of meditation, right? They'll be like concentrate on the feeling and then observe, you'll be the observer. Like there's all these different techniques
So many.
and so many, and they're all basically doors to the same place. right? It's all a door to the same place. It just depends on what resonates with you. It's a door to the same place, which tells you, hey, I'm back in my body. I am paying attention to my breath. I'm back in my body. I am paying attention to this music and I'm paying attention to my body's response to it. I am paying attention to the sensation of tapping on my head or tapping down my body. I'm doing qigong. I'm doing yoga. I
Mm.
whatever it is putting you back in touch with your body.
Yeah.
And so that's where Apollo came from. Was we looked at the biofeedback literature, the meditation. Dave wanted to know, how could you create states of safety in the body without drugs? How does the body respond? Soothing touch, soothing music, soothing lighting. What's something you can take with you everywhere you go? Like on your body, touch, because you need your ears to listen and you can't be looking at things all the time. You have to be in your day-to-day life. Touch is something passive that can operate in the background. And so we looked at biofeedback, yoga, exercise physiology literature from these guys that do like, these wild ski trips and like they enter the state of flow as they'll describe it. And they're all high heart rate variability states. And so Dave was like, how do people get into these high heart rate variability states? There's this resonance between your heart and your lungs when you deep breathe. It's like, what if we applied deep breathing to people's body through their sense of touch?
Mm.
Would they calm down? And that's what we see. We see high heart rate variability, lower resting heart rate, better sleep, and better mood because we're essentially giving people that anchor of calm throughout their whole day.
Okay, so in the last 4 years since you launched this, you
Mhm.
guys have actually done studies to
Mhm.
show. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna preface this by saying I have to be transparent. I put away my Aura Ring, which I used for almost 5 years, or more than maybe even more than 5 years. I also was using a BioStrap. I was the queen of metrics, and then last February, so I'm a 54-year-old woman going through menopause.
Mhm.
And I found that those were stressing me out more, and I wanted to come back to my own body and how do I feel? So, how do I feel? Do I feel tired through the day? Do I feel like I'm foggy because I didn't sleep well? Do I So I started to really pay attention to my own my own body. And so that's why I always tell people sometimes you need to take a little break from those and see how you feel. But that's not to say that they're not accurate to a certain degree. I do feel that it depends on you. For some reason, the Aura Ring, it just never it would show me like I was like half dead, like 10 HRV.
Yeah. Right.
I'm
There's
like,
a right. Like, I mean,
there's
it's
something about my fingers, Catherine. Maybe it's because they're kind of like short and fat. I don't know. I don't
well,
know.
it is fit. Like with most of those things for reliability, you need to get the fit right, right? Like you need to wear, like I think the whoop is worn right here, and the Oura ring needs to be really quite tight. Like it can't be loose and spinning around like these are, right? It needs to
Yeah.
be sense. So you know the
But
data. You have to make sure you have them on right to get the
y-
information. But I get your point. Like
yeah.
sometimes the
So
data overwhelms you, and you're like, what do I do with all this information?
right, and so I always say to people, find something that works for you. So I found the BioStrap to actually be quite accurate. It made sense because it aligned with how I felt. So
Right.
that's really it. Like, how do I feel? Do I feel rested? Do I feel but I'm sure in your case you have to use something to make it more clinical. Like you have to. You have to use devices to measure it and to say, okay, it's working or no, it's not working. So tell us what you've actually found with Apollo Neuro in the last 4 years.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we started in the lab, right? This
Yeah.
Dave and I were not trying to start a company. We were trying to figure out if this therapy would work.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we started in the lab and we conducted several clinical trials at the University of Pittsburgh that were in lab trials. So people come in and we have them do a task and we measure them not using a consumer wearable, but using, EEG, EKG,
Oh, that's awesome.
telemetry. Like this started from like research in a lab. And so
Yeah.
what we found was and so this is the first study that we did was a double blind trial where we had participants come in and we had them do a stressful cognitive task. It's a horrible task. We have to like listen to some robot basically tell you single digit numbers and you have to add the last two you heard every 2 seconds for 3 minutes. So
Yeesh.
reason we did this, the first test, and the reason we did this was because we were trying to see if we stress people out, it's reliable for driving people crazy. If we stress people out and we apply an Apollo stimulation, a dummy vibration that's supposed to, one was supposed to be alerting, one was supposed to be calming, and then a no vibration condition, and it was crossover. So each subject went through everything twice. And so it's a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled crossover trial. And what we found, this was the first study where got really excited. What we found is compared to the control and the placebo, they didn't do anything. And the Apollo changed people's resting heart rate and their heart rate variability. And what's really crazy was the amount of HRV correlated with the amount of improved performance. So what we found is people who had the Apollo on looked calmer, their HRV was up, their heart rate was down compared to their baseline, and various other metrics like their pupillometry and their galvanic skin response or sweating. But what we found was basically body calmed down, they said they felt calmer, and they did better, meaning they got more accurate. So if you think about when you're trying to do something, it's like the end of a standardized test. And you're like, oh God, I got 1 minute, C, right? Like you're freaking out. And that's, if you could be calm in your body, you might be able to think faster and get more of those questions right. It's the same kind of concept. Then we repeated that and we published this trial in athletes. So we had them do repetitive exercise because stress on the body, stress on the mind, it's all happening in the nervous system. So we had people do repetitive exercise. What we saw was that when you applied Apollo, people's heart rate variability went up and they could actually do the exercise for longer because they had more resilience. And then subsequently, when you're talking about Oura Ring, we wrapped a trial. You can find these results on our website, but we wrapped a trial on 1,300 people in the real world, right? So this is after we launched the product, and we tracked people for now 3 years. And what we found was people who used Apollo consistently, so they're using it like an hour and a half during the day and an hour and a half at night, passively, right? Like I'm going to use this during this interview, and then I'm going to use it at night to help me fall asleep. What we saw was that people were getting 30 minutes more sleep a night, that their deep sleep, their REM sleep, their heart rate variability, all these metrics were improving equivalent to what you'd see from a meditation routine.
Mhm.
So for people who are concerned about tracking all of their metrics, and that's a lot of people, Apollo came from lab studies, and if you have these other things, great. We also launched a thing called Smart Vibes. We launched this back in November of last year, so this is November of 23.
Okay.
And what we launched was a thing called Smart Vibes, which is an algorithm that predicts when you wake up in the middle of the night, and it turns on automatically to help you go back to sleep.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, and so what that's for is like if you have another wearable, like you have an Oura Ring or you have one of these other things, you want to track all your metrics, that's great. But if you just have an Apollo and you just want to sleep through the night, Apollo will, this is me last night. Apollo, all the purple marks are when it thought I might wake up based on my motion. I also have a puppy running around my bed, waking me up. And so this is all the times it turned on to help me sleep through the night. And after midnight, I actually don't recall being awake. I just slept through the night. And I'm not somebody who sleeps through the night. I'm a 2 in the a.m. waker upper writing in my notebook person. And it was a total game
Oh,
changer. So if I had to like do the too long didn't read on this, like data is amazing and Apollo has been validated. And if you want to track it, amazing. But the main thing is Apollo makes you feel different.
yeah.
Like Apollo helps you calm down and it helps you sleep. And if you use it consistently, it actually helps compound. That's the other thing we found was that because I didn't want to put out a product where people would use it and then it would stop working. That's like a thing that drives me totally insane. And so what we found was that it actually had a sensitization effect. So the more you used it, the quicker you responded to it and the more benefit you got. It was a building and a learning effect. It was actually teaching your body to be more calm over time.
And and if you stopped using it, would you go back to where you were before?
It's like if you stopped exercising, like, like if you were
Mm.
exercising like a few days a week and you had a rhythm and then you went and traveled and you didn't exercise and you came
You got
back,
off your yeah, you got off your
out of
game.
your routine, got off your game. Would you feel like crap immediately? No.
Yeah.
But like after 2, 3 weeks, you'd be like, yeah, I'm kind of sore and like I'm not sleeping as well. Maybe I should get back to my exercise routine. It's kind of like
Yes.
that, right? It's not gonna drop you off the face of a cliff. It's just like, for me, if I forget for some reason, and I'll be like, man, I didn't get as much done today. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't have focus on. I didn't have my focus vibe on. Like I was kind of not as focused as I normally am because I normally have this thing, I put it on my body and then I'm just cranking at my laptop and I get it all done. And then I go put on my relax when I go, have to make dinner and it's my transition into chill out nighttime.
That's actually so I've been using it not long enough yet because I've had maybe not quite 2 weeks, I don't think, of using it. But what I have been doing, I'm a morning worker. I'll wake up early and then I work when nobody's going to bother me. And so I've been putting it on in the morning. And then I don't know if you get like this, but there's those days where I'm working all day and then I'll be like, ah, it's 3 o'clock. I haven't even emptied my dishwasher. And I really just don't feel like doing it. So I will put on focus to get then my house tasks done. And then I start cooking. And then as soon as dinner comes along, I start to put on unwind because I want to start bringing myself back down.
Mhm.
And I do want to say this because we were talking about wearables. I want to point this out. The one thing I strongly suggest if anybody is trying to track is look at the trends. Don't necessarily look, right? Like
Totally.
just from somebody who had to put mine away because I allowed it to stress me out. So I allowed
Trackers.
my wearables to my trackers, yes, and they are wearables too, right? Like I allowed them to stress me out. But interesting because what I am going to try, because I've been having this 4 a.m. wake up, and then sometimes I get up at 5, but I go to bed. I'm like asleep by 10. So
Okay.
I'm like, that's not bad. That's 7 hours of sleep, and I feel good. But I'm going to try this at 4 a.m. So sometimes I use Newcom. They have
Mhm.
this sleep thing. So with this, I could put the Apollo, just turn it on sleep. There's like a sleep button. I haven't tried this one yet.
Oh
And it
yeah.
will help me get back to sleep so that I wake up at a normal time. My husband's like, "What's wrong with you? You're getting up at like 4:30 in the morning? Like, go to bed, girl. Stay."
Also, so totally, if you have basic, you can just have sleep on. So you can
Yeah.
just go. The other thing is before you go to bed, like when you're getting into bed,
Yeah.
put put the sleep vibe on. And then when you're sleeping, if you wake up, if you don't have smart vibes, if you don't have the algorithm that does it for you, then what you can do is just press these two buttons and it will turn sleep back on for you. So if you wake up, notice that you're awake and you're like, and don't look at your phone. Don't wake yourself up with your phone. Just reach
Okay.
down buttons at the same time and it will turn sleep back on for you.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, because we designed it so that you could basically just anytime you have a program like a vibe on, like Focus or Social or whatever you want, you don't have to go back to the app. You can just press these buttons and turn it back on. The point of smart vibes is that we do it for you.
Mm,
So it's just like, you're not always going to remember, okay, I want to press the focus one and then I want to, but maybe in the beginning when you're first using the product, you get to know it. You're like, I like these programs for these things. I like to use Calm when I'm doing the dishes or Focus when I like to do the dishes and I like to
yeah.
have Calm on when I'm, scrolling on Netflix, like whatever it is that you like to pair it with. But Smart Vibes does it for you. So what we do is we send you vibes throughout the day to help you relax and basically based on what your day looks like. So we ask you a few questions and it'll know that you're an early morning waker upper. And so it'll send you your focus vibes for work during the morning and then it'll send you the calming stuff at night to help you unwind. And so we do it for you with Smart Vibes, but you can do it yourself with just manually setting a schedule or using the buttons to remember to use it. The whole
Okay,
point
that's
of Smart Vibes is to make it simple. So like we would see that you want to wake up, you tell me you want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, that's your wake up time. So I would know that 4:30 in the morning, if I see that you're awake, you don't want to be, and it would turn sleep on automatically for you.
okay. Here's a question because I know a lot of people will put their phone on airplane mode. It won't work if it's on airplane mode, or will it if you push the two buttons?
Well, Apollo will work if you press the two buttons, even if it's not, even if your phone's on airplane mode.
Oh, good.
And you can also, the smart vibes work completely independently of your phone. So if you have set smart vibes up that you wanted to turn on automatically for you, it will do that automatically, even if your phone's in airplane mode.
Oh, cool.
We are low EMF. We only sync to the phone when you are actively picking a program or doing something that's connecting to the device. But otherwise, we set it up to run independent.
Oh, this is
I
amazing.
don't
I
want
didn't
you
know
to be
this.
tethered to this. I do not want you to be tethered to your phone to use Apollo. Like you can use it, but we made it so that you can kind of, with smart vibes, you can set it and forget it. Like, you know what I mean? The whole idea is like, I want to, for me, I have my bedtime, aspirational. but my bedtime's set for 10 p.m. and my wake up time set for 7 a.m. Now that doesn't happen a lot. I run a company and sometimes I'm doing lots of stuff at different times, but that's what it's set to do. And so it knew when I woke up that I didn't want to be awake. And so it turned on my vibe to help me go back to sleep.
Oh,
Right.
that is cool.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing is like, if you know that you're waking up too early, and I think one of the questions that I'd seen that you sent was, what do we do? Like, how would this help menopausal women? And and it's really any women, right? Like, so if you think
Yeah.
about sleep disturbance is part of being female, like it's part of having kids.
Yeah.
And if you're, and if you experience menopause, like you're going to have hormonal shifts. This even happens when you're menstruating. You have more.
Yes.
So, like, your sleep is different when you ovulate, you're hotter, like, you know what I mean? And then, like, your sleep is different when you're menstruating. Like, all of these things affect mood and sleep, right? The hormonal shifts when you're in menopause dramatically change sleep, so this is like when sleep disturbance becomes like a big thing for women, is
Mhm.
like you can't sleep through the night, keep waking up. And so that's in part like, how do you use Apollo? It's regulating you during the day so your body is calmer, which makes it
Mhm.
easier to fall asleep. And then what we do with smart vibes is we predict when you're going to wake up based on your motion, and we actually intervene before you wake up so that you sleep through the night.
Mhm.
So if you think about it, it's really simple, is that, like, when a baby is about to wake up in the crib and you can see that they're starting to fuss, but it is not the time yet. And you reach down, you put your hand out and you rub their back and you go, shh.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, right? If you're lucky, they go back to sleep. Apollo is essentially doing that. It is the car ride, right? It's the car ride. It's the wheels churning when they're in the car seat. It's just for adults. So if we see that you're going to wake up, we're going to go, oh, shh, you don't need to be awake. You don't need to be awake.
I just thought of another application just because I remembered my second child, she did not sleep. And I had a toddler and a baby, and so imagine how great that would be when you know that your toddler is busy doing something, an activity, and you could take a quick little nap. When, like, I don't know if you're a mom, but like for those women who are moms, when you had to sneak in that little nap and you'd be like, oh my God, the baby's asleep. I've got a little bit of time, but then you can't fall asleep. So now you've got a tool to help you do that. What am I
Power
looking at?
nap. Power nap.
Power nap. There you go.
It's a vibe, power nap. And yeah, whether you're a mom or just somebody needs to go to bed real quick, it's a really good one. Because basically what it does is it knows that you're awake and you're trying to go to sleep. And so the vibes basically meet you where you are in your awake state. They send you like a lulling calm, and then they help drop you into the sleep so you can get 15, 20 minutes of sleep. And then it revs you back up at the end. So you're not like, oh God,
Yeah.
now I'm gonna try to get back to my life, right? Which is the reason some people don't take naps, because they're like, uh-oh, now I'm all like foggy and weird. Apollo is like basically almost like a playlist. It's gonna go from gentle music to like basically like those lully sounds for sleep, like your kid's white noise machine. And then it's gonna take you back up over a period of time to help you take a quick nap. That's
That's
really what Apollo is
amazing.
set up to do. It's basically set up to help regulate energy levels during the day and help you sleep at night, right? That's really what it's for. It's just, and it's just using touch to do that.
Okay. How long does it take before, on average, before people will actually see the increases in their heart rate variability and some of the metrics to really improve?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the person, right? So like what we found in the lab when we had everybody up on like leads and we were doing lab measurements is we can just notice the effect on the body within about 2 minutes, right? But if you're tracking, like you're saying, with different wearables and, they are tracking different metrics, and it's really about trends.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, if you put Apollo on and you hold it to your chest in the beginning, you're going to notice that your feeling changes, right? And so to get the maximum benefit, it's really use it during the day to help you with smart vibes because you set it up and it's just doing its thing, or because you're using it the way you are. which is like, I'm going to use it for focus to get all my tasks done, and then I'm going to use it intentionally to do this, and you'll pair it together. It's really just using it consistently. And what we see is within a couple weeks, people are starting to see that they're like, particularly people who have trouble sleeping, like that's, for me, it's a godsend. Like Apollo is a godsend. We call it dog fooding. So, I use all of the earliest stuff when it still has bugs and we're building a new thing. I'm the first one to use it. And so when my Apollo stops working, I'm like, oh God, guys, I need to sleep. Help me. I need to sleep. And so, like, for me, Apollo has been a complete, like, I can't even underestimate, like, when we launched Smart Vibes, I knew we got it right when it helped me sleep through the night. Like, I remember sending the message. It was like, I slept all the way through the night. I slept all the way through the night, guys. Like, we did it. Keep it up. Like, we nailed it.
Y-
Because I'm a person who, like, my whole family, except for my father, every single one of us is like a person who wakes up at 2 a.m. or 4
Okay.
a.m. It's all of us. You know what I mean? And so who knows why, but it's all of us. And so for me to sleep through the night, now my entire family uses Apollo. Like my sister uses Apollo, my nephew uses Apollo, little kids, my brother has little kids and he'll put it on them to help with homework, right? Or to help them go to sleep at night. Like the entire group is using it. So what I would say is just, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, but the main thing is stick with it for a couple weeks and be consistent with it and you'll see. And it's easier than being consistent with meditating twice a day. Do you know what I
Totally.
mean? You
Totally.
can
And
press a button.
for those people who can't take that break, I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't been using it for like super long, but it's already explaining the trends that I might see in terms of my benefits. So it's saying that my estimated sleep gains are going to be just in this short period, 8 minutes average per night, short period of using it. This is what they're estimating. Um, that it would be in, what is it, 7 days, 1 hour and 2 minutes. Like that's big in terms of gains,
that from
right?
Apollo.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So you're getting your estimated sleep gains.
Yes, because I'm starting to see, what, and then it gives you a cool little dial showing calm, sleep, focus. I guess that's what I'm using. I'm getting my benefit score, which is a 7 right now. So it's something that it's over time, the benefits are just going to get more and more if you use it consistently. And the key is it's not hard to use it.
Right, that's the whole point. We would try to make it pretty damn easy. Like you put the thing on wherever you want to wear it. That's the other thing. Like I
Yeah.
don't like wearing things on my wrists. If you can't see me, I'm not a big person. I'm a pretty petite woman. And so I don't really like to wear anything. And so what I really like is wearing it on my chest because this is super simple. I just clip it to my clothes, I clip it to my
Like
bra, and then
to your bra.
yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
just take this thing and which I actually learned from my sister before we build it. She was putting it there and I was like, why? She goes, I like it. It's central. It feels good here. I was like, let's figure that out. And so you can put it in different places. And at night I wear it on my ankle, right? I just
Yes.
wear it on my ankle when I go to sleep. It's out of my way. And it's really simple to use. And then the thing about Smart Vibes that's awesome is that, if you're somebody who's like, I'm not going to remember even to press the button for the program, like you're not going to remember to press focus to do the focus work. Like Smart Vibes will do it for you.
Yeah.
Like you ask a couple questions and we'll set up the algorithm to do it for you in the background.
So it kind of makes sense. The one thing that I was reading is you don't want to put it on an actual bone, but somewhere where, right? Am I reading this right? Like you want to have it kind of near a bone. Like, you're, is that
Well,
right?
yeah, no, I mean, like if you put it on your wrist, you're putting it on a bone, right? Like so
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you would have it near your wrist bone
Yeah, I
here.
mean, you would wear it. So, okay, if low frequency sound needs dense material to transmit through,
Right.
right? So, like, it's why if you ever stood in front of speakers, you feel it in your chest, right? You feel
Yes.
your chest, right? So, like, bone, like, so you want to wear it on, you can wear it on either side of your wrist. Those are the easy places we usually see people wear either side of
Yeah.
your wrist. I put it right here, right in, like, right on my chest bone, like, right here,
Um,
central, super great, super great. Then you can also wear it on your ankle. And then
yeah.
I've seen guys will either put it between the buttons on their shirt or they'll put it in a pocket, or they'll stick it like on their hip bone. They'll like attach it in this pocket on your jeans. They'll like stick it to your,
Okay. Okay.
so it's as long as it's touching the skin and you can feel it, like it doesn't matter where you put it. And then the other bit to note, if people are getting used to it, is that you don't need to turn it up to 100. Like you'll see that there's this opportunity with intensity to
Yes.
change how intense a program is.
I like to
So
go high, Kathryn.
yeah, and lots of people do, right? Lots of people do, but some people are more sensitive and they'll feel a little overstimulated because they'll go, oh man, this is
Yes.
really vibrating intensely. You do not need to vibrate it intensely. So to give you an idea, this is something you'll see also as you use the programs more and more, you become more sensitive to them and you don't need as much intensity. But like I use a social vibe at like less than 10%.
Wow.
It's really gentle. So you really just want it to be right where you notice it in the beginning. But after like a minute or two, it fades into the background and it's like white noise for your brain. Like you don't notice it anymore. It should not be like I mean, unless you really like it,
I
like
like it.
everybody do their own thing. If you want it to go and you like that sensation, awesome. Like enjoy. That's why we give people the autonomy to choose how they like to feel it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's some people really like loud music, some people like gentle music.
I like
But
loud music.
there you go. But like,
Yeah.
some people want more stimulation, and that's fine. But where you should set it is it shouldn't be distracting. Like, so if you have it on focus, you should have it so that after a minute or two, you don't really notice it, and you're just in flow doing your thing. If you're noticing it all the time, it's up too high. Just turn it down. And so
Okay.
that's the first thing to note. And sleep too. Like, set it to where you notice it. But the thing about sleep is it is so gentle and it's meant to be that way so that when because you don't want to let, if a kid were waking up, you wouldn't go to sleep. You'd be like, right?
Shh. Yeah, you're not going to be go
You're
to
like,
sleep.
no, I'm gonna vibrate you to sleep. Right. You want it to be
Although
like gentle, gentle.
we have said go to sleep like that in the past. I mean, what mother
Go
has?
to sleep. I want to go to
Okay, I
turn back into
gotta ask,
the room.
I gotta ask you about social because I actually just discovered that a
Mhm.
couple days ago. I'm like, oh, social, because as you know, like I haven't had it for that long, so I'm still, figuring it out. Okay, I you're gonna laugh. I'm not really an extroverted person. I love one-on-one conversations. I thrive in that kind of environment. So when I'm, let's say, at a party where there's like 20 people, a lot of times I'll just have a private little conversation with one person. What does social do exactly?
Okay. So I'm like that too. I am an undercover introvert, and
Yeah, me
so
too.
I'm really outgoing, right? So I'm not like afraid of people. I like people. I like to get on stage. I like to do this kind of thing, right? I'm good with all of that, but eventually I get tired out. And
Yeah,
so what social is really good is for when you want to be social, but you're not like you actually want to be like you've chosen to go to this party. So you want to be doing something social, otherwise you wouldn't have chosen to do it, right?
yeah.
Or you have Zoom like Zoom, what I call Zoomageddon, which is like one after the other of new
Mhm.
people at a different conversation. And you're in front of a computer all day, which is a lot of people's lives. And it's not normal, but that's where we are. Apollo, the social vibe, basically helps give you a little bit of energy, like a little smileys, a little energy,
Oh, I
but
need
it's
that.
helping you feel calm and you're centered in your body. So you're not getting like the fatigue feeling of being around people. So I use social all the time. It's one of my top vibes that I use. I use social for meetings. I use social for creative work or like brainstorming with others, like when we're coming up with stuff that we need to do or like making roadmaps or any of that stuff, I'll use social. And I use social when I'm like at conferences or, meeting a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
going from new person, and you see it too at like these conferences. People are like there but they're also exhausted because like nothing about it is good. Like it's bad lighting and not great food and like air conditioning and like all the things that make you super uncomfortable, like you're like, oh god, I'm cold and tired and I've met like 1,000 people and shaken all these hands and like I really need to like go sit down and be by myself.
Yeah.
Social is a little bit of support so that you get the most out of why you're there, right? Like you feel bubbly and you're not super fatigued. And then
I
what I
love it.
use after that, like after I do the social stuff, is I'll use the recover vibe. And recover is like a nice bounce back if you want to be calm, but it's still daytime. Like you want to be calm, but you still need energy. Recover is really good for that.
Okay. That's great. Um, you're gonna laugh at me. I've been called a backer outer.
You cancel plans. You're like, I'm sorry, I just can't.
I'm just so not feeling social tonight. I can't do it. And or you like you said, your social battery runs out where you're just like, I can't. And then, you know, then you stay because your spouse wants to stay longer, but you're
Uh,
just like, oh my God. Right. So
100%. Yeah.
that's totally me. So I am going to test this and I'm going to email you, Catherine. I'm going to tell you, you know what? It worked. I was able to stay out till like 12 o'clock, which is rare for me.
Yeah. I mean, social vibe for me is sometimes like I'm like, oh God, I've worked all day. It's really that. I've worked all day and now it's time for the fun thing I was supposed to do. Like, I actually do want to go see my friends,
Yeah.
right? I do want to go have this really interesting conversation with this new person that I'm about to meet. But you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Social is like, okay, it's all good. Like, you don't, and it's instead of drinking the cup of coffee that you do not want to drink because it's going to mess up your sleep, make you
Yeah.
super anxious. Like social is really good for that. I say that for me, it feels like taking a sip of espresso and a sip of champagne.
Hmm. Very
Like,
interesting. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to microdose on psilocybin or
oh
anything like that.
my God, no, exactly. Exactly. Because all of these states are inherent within us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? All of the states are ours. And people use all these things to get themselves into another state, is to go find
Yes.
that energy or find that state. And Apollo is really about finding that state within your own body.
Oh, beautiful. That's a beautiful way to describe it because, yes, we use different substances to get into that state. Like,
Mhm.
when you're the only one that's not drinking at a party.
Right. You definitely know that.
I mean, you see it, you feel it. It's not usually fun.
It's also my trick with socials. So I don't drink very much, not because I have anything against drinking, but because I'm small and I get tired. And it like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, it's fun for a minute and then I'm exhausted, right? And so might have like a glass of wine and then everybody else is doing their thing. I'll just have like a soda, like a club soda with a bunch of lime juice in it. You know what I mean? And then I'll put the social vibe on and I'm still with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm still with everybody and like this bubbly, social, engaging, we're all here having fun vibe, but I don't need to consume the alcohol because
Oh,
I
I
don't want to
love
consume it,
that.
right? Because it makes me tired and then it makes my sleep not great and then I don't feel as good the next day. And like I want to like I enjoy feeling well. I
Me
enjoy
too.
having energy. If I don't feel energy like energized and happy, I'm kind of like, what happened? Because I'm usually up. Like I'm usually like good and I'm having a good time and I'm smiling. And that's just like my general state is to be awake and to feel good. And so anything that doesn't make me feel good is like something that I'm like, I don't really need to do that. If it makes me tired and not feel well, or makes me feel less like, makes me feel run down, like what's the point?
Or then the next day you have a waste of a day. Like that's
Yeah,
my
that's
biggest
the
thing.
worst,
Yeah,
right?
it's the
It's the
worst.
worst. And then I don't want to be at
Yeah.
home being boring, like
Yeah.
not being with people, not being with my family, not being with my friends because I'm tuckered out. Like
Yeah.
I just want to get good sleep and feel well and flow. I want to flow. And so that's social is definitely that for me.
Flow. I love it. I love that word actually, just being in flow. I think that's an amazing way to summarize and ask you what's next for Apollo.
Yeah, I mean, what's next? We're just going to keep on doing what we're doing, making it better,
Making
making
it
more fun
better.
ways for you to feel good in your body. That's what we're about. So,
I love
what I
it.
can say is that we've done a lot. We've created a lot of new stuff and we're going to keep creating new stuff because I'm about and Dave's about making people feel well and not and basically helping people feel well on their own because
Yeah.
that's really the most empowering thing, when you just feel good because you get good sleep and you can get your work done and you're productive and you're able to engage with your friends and family. And because when we feel good, we do good. And that's
I'm
the
with
most
you.
important part.
I'm with you. More love to give, right?
Totally.
Um, okay, so where can we find you, Kathryn? Where can we find Apollo?
You can find Apollo at apolloneuro.com. So that's Apollo and then neuro.com. So that's Apollo Neuroscience. And you can also put in Apollo wearable in Google and we'll pop up. And then you can find me on like LinkedIn, and you can find us on all Apollo on all of the things, Instagram and all those
Okay.
tools.
I'll be sure to give your email so everyone who listens to this can just bother you individually. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'll have
Yeah.
everything in the show
But we
notes as
are
well.
really responsive. So if you send us messages on socials, we do get back. So
Yes, yes, I noticed that. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much, Kathryn. It was such a pleasure. We had such a great chat.
yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Okay, I had stop on there. I think that was really good.